Speaking of that, there is this long-standing Senate tradition called blue slips, and I'm just going to explain it a little bit to our audience before I actually get to the question. And what blue slips are, it is a tradition where senators from the state of the judicial nominee, they send in a blue slip, essentially giving a nod of approval that this nominee can move forward, that there are no major objections. Senator Durbin, you have received a lot of pressure from the left to get rid of this blue slip tradition, especially as a lot of nominations are coming up and have come up in conservative red states. And also, most recently, you met with the Congressional Black Caucus last week. They sent you a letter, I believe it was this week, asking you to get rid of blue slips, saying that it is a vestige of the Jim Crow era, an attempt to restrict Black judges from being confirmed or even nominated or getting a hearing. What is your stance on blue slips at this point? Are you going to keep this tradition?
I support the blue slip process, but I've said to the Republicans that unless they engage in this process in good faith, I'm not going to be held to that standard. What it boils down to is this: you're right. In history, the blue slip process has been used for nefarious purposes, from my point of view, for racial purposes, by those who wanted to exclude certain Democratic appointments in states, southern states usually, of individuals who would be open to changes when it came to race considerations. But there have also been uses of the blue slip for totally different purposes. It really means that an individual senator has the right to decide whether or not someone is going to get a lifetime appointment to the federal judiciary in their state. I will tell you as an example, during the Trump administration, what I did was to engage with the White House directly in agreeing to a bipartisan list of nominees who we'd suggest to the Judiciary Committee. So I turned in blue slips for Trump nominees. In return, the Trump White House put forward names of nominees that I suggested. So there was kind of a give and take on a bipartisan basis, and I think it worked fairly. During the Trump years, 121 blue slips were sent in by Democratic senators for nominees that came before the Judiciary Committee. So it was very bipartisan in that regard. However, during that same period of time, the Trump years, some Democratic senators used the blue slip to keep federal judicial slots vacant until, in the hopes that there'd be a Democratic president. Some of those have been filled now. So I think it can be misused. I've said I'll never stand by using the blue slip for purposes of discrimination based on race or gender or sexual orientation. But I support the blue slip as long as it's done on a bipartisan basis.